Before we dive in, let me know where you're tuning in from in the comments below. It was just another ordinary day for Lisa Thompson, or so everyone thought. The sun was high in the sky, the streets were crowded with people, and the air was filled with the sounds of honking cars, chattering voices, and footsteps rushing to get to the next place. Lisa was walking through it all, as usual, guiding her every step with the help of her loyal guide dog, Max. Lisa wore her dark sunglasses, the ones she always wore when she went outside. They helped protect her eyes from the sun, but there was something else about them too, something that made her stand out, but not in the way she wanted. People often looked at her, then quickly looked away. To them, she was just a blind woman, walking down the street, relying on her dog to guide her. Nothing special, nothing important. Max, a large, strong golden retriever, was by her side. His leash was attached to her wrist, and every time Lisa took a step, Max took one right beside her. Max wasn't just any dog. To most people, they were just a blind woman and her dog. They didn't realize Max had been trained for something much bigger than simply guiding a person around. Max wasn't just any dog. Max was a retired Navy SEAL K9. And his job had been much more dangerous than anyone could ever imagine. But that was something Lisa didn't tell people. It was her secret, and one she kept hidden. It wasn't something that mattered to most people. In their eyes, she was just a woman walking with a dog, like any other person in the world. But there was much more to her story than what met the eye. Lisa had learned a long time ago that people would judge her by what they saw on the outside. Most of the time, she didn't mind. She wasn't looking for attention, and she didn't need anyone to feel sorry for her. What people didn't know was that Lisa had been through things in her life that would change anyone. And Max, her loyal guide dog, was a big part of that. Today, however, things were different. Lisa could feel it in the air. People were staring. They didn't always stare, but today was different. Maybe it was because of the loud sound of the motorcycles roaring down the street, or maybe it was because of the group of bikers parked at the corner up ahead. Either way, Lisa could sense it. As she walked, she heard the engines grow louder and louder. The bikes were approaching fast, and she could already tell that they weren't just any bikers. These were the kind of guys who acted tough. The kind of guys who liked to make fun of others. Lisa could feel her heart rate pick up just a little, but she didn't stop walking. She knew Max would keep her safe, as he always did. Lisa walked closer to the bikers. She could hear their laughter before she even saw them. They were talking loudly, joking with each other, and revving their engines like they were showing off. The sound of their bikes was so loud that it felt like the whole street was shaking. Lisa's hand tightened around Max's leash. She didn't need to tell him what to do, he already knew. Max kept his pace steady, just like always. His ears were up, alert, listening for any sound that might be important. Lisa knew that Max could hear things that she couldn't. That was one of the many reasons she trusted him so much. He had a special way of sensing danger, and it was something she counted on every single day. Lisa's footsteps echoed through the street as she got closer to the group of bikers. One of them, a tall man with tattoos on his arms and a tough look on his face, turned and noticed her. He gave her a quick, dirty look and then snickered to his friends. "Hey, look at this," the man said, pointing at Lisa and Max. "What's this? A blind lady and her dog? Looks like she's lost." His friends laughed. Lisa could hear the sound of their laughter, and she felt the heat of their eyes on her back. She kept walking, though. She didn't let them get to her. She had dealt with people like this before. They didn't know her. They didn't know Max. But that didn't stop them from thinking they could make fun of her. "Hey, lady," another biker called out. "You need help? I can show you the way, if your dog can't find it for you." The words stung, but Lisa didn't let it show. She focused on the sound of Max's breathing, steady and calm beside her. Max was her protector, her guide, her friend. He had been by her side for years. He'd been through things that no one could ever imagine. Max had seen the worst of the world, and yet, here he was, beside her every day, helping her live her life. Lisa couldn't stop the feeling that something was about to happen. It wasn't the first time people had made rude comments, but today, there was something different in the air. Maybe it was the way the bikers were acting, or maybe it was the way Max was walking a little more carefully. Lisa didn't know for sure, but she could feel the tension building. She took another step forward. Max matched her step. And then, out of nowhere, one of the bikers stepped right in front of her. He was blocking her path, standing tall with his arms crossed and a grin on his face. "What's wrong, lady?" he said, his voice full of mockery. "You lost or something? You need a hand?" Lisa stopped. She wasn't afraid of him, not at all. But she had to make a decision. She had to choose how to handle this moment. Max was waiting for her command. He knew what to do. Lisa just had to give the signal. She didn't say a word to the biker. She didn't need to. Max was already moving. Without a single command, Max lunged forward, his body moving with the speed and precision of a dog who had been trained for far more than guiding a blind woman down a street. The biker took a step back, his eyes wide with surprise as Max's bark rang through the air, loud and powerful. Max's body was strong and muscular, his fur shining in the sunlight. He looked nothing like a regular guide dog. He looked like the warrior he once was. The biker froze for a second, unsure of what to do. Max didn't move closer, but he didn't back down either. He stood his ground, showing the biker that Lisa and he were not to be messed with. Lisa smiled softly. She didn't need to do anything else. Max had already sent the message. The bikers looked at each other, confusion and fear in their eyes. One by one, they took a step back, slowly moving away from Lisa and Max. It wasn't until they were gone that Lisa let out a small breath. Max was already moving beside her again, his steps as calm as before, as though nothing had happened. But Lisa knew something had changed. She knew that the bikers would never forget this moment. They had learned something today, something they didn't expect to learn. And it had all been because of her dog. But for Lisa, it wasn't about teaching the bikers a lesson. It was about knowing that Max would always be there to protect her, no matter what. And that, more than anything, was the true power of their partnership. Lisa had gotten used to the sideways glances. The whispers behind her back. People didn't understand. A blind woman with a guide dog? She must be helpless, right? It wasn't fair, but that's how things often went. People saw her walking with Max, her loyal golden retriever, and they assumed she couldn't do much on her own. They couldn't know what Lisa was capable of. They couldn't know what Max was capable of. But Lisa knew. She knew that, no matter what anyone thought, she was strong. She was independent. And she was not helpless. Lisa had always been strong. She had to be. Life hadn't always been easy for her. There had been difficult days, days where everything seemed too hard. But those days made her tough, made her determined. And she wasn't about to let anyone treat her like she couldn't handle the world. Still, no matter how many times she dealt with the stares and the whispers, it still stung. Lisa tried not to let it bother her, but sometimes it did. Sometimes it made her feel small. Sometimes she just wanted to shout at the world, "I'm just like you. I can do everything you can do. I just need a little help, that's all." But she never shouted. Instead, she smiled. She smiled because she knew that if she didn't, it would only make things worse. People always seemed to get nervous or uncomfortable when someone shouted at them. And Lisa had learned a long time ago that she didn't need to raise her voice to be heard. Today was one of those days where the whispers felt louder, the glances sharper. Lisa could feel it. She could feel the way people looked at her. The way they watched her walk down the street with Max by her side. She could hear them talking behind her back. Sometimes it felt like she had a target on her back, It wasn't even just the strangers. Sometimes, even the people who knew her didn't really understand. They tried to be kind, of course. They tried to make her feel normal. But there were always little things that gave away what they really thought. A kind smile, a soft voice, and an offer for help like she couldn't manage things on her own. Lisa didn't need pity. She didn't want anyone's sympathy. She just wanted to be treated like anyone else. And she was. She had a job. She had friends. She went to the store, went to the park, enjoyed the little things in life. And none of it was because of pity. It was because she was a person just like anyone else. But today, as Lisa walked down her usual route through the city, things didn't feel the same. Today, something was different. Lisa had walked this way 1,000 times. Her route through the city was the same every day. She knew exactly where the street corners were, where the crosswalks were, and when to stop and when to go. Max, her guide dog, knew it too. They were a perfect team, working in perfect harmony. But as Lisa came around the corner, she noticed something. It was something she couldn't ignore. A group of bikers had gathered near the old motorcycle shop she usually passed. She could hear the sound of their engines rumbling long before she saw them. The loud roar of the motorcycles filled the air, shaking the pavement beneath her feet. The smell of gasoline and leather mixed with the usual city smells of hot dogs, coffee, and exhaust. Lisa's steps slowed as she heard the loud revving of the bikes. She didn't know why, but today, she felt a little nervous. Maybe it was the way the bikers were laughing, shouting to each other, making a scene. Maybe it was because there were so many of them. Lisa wasn't afraid of them, exactly, but she wasn't sure what they would do. As Lisa got closer, she could hear them. The sound of their voices over the noise of the engines. They were laughing. Talking. Teasing. And then, one of them spoke up, his voice loud and clear. "Hey, lady," he shouted. "You lost or something?" Lisa stopped in her tracks. The question wasn't kind. It wasn't helpful. It was mocking. It was like the man didn't even try to hide the fact that he was making fun of her. And when his friends heard it, they all laughed. Lisa could almost feel their eyes on her, judging her, sizing her up. She gripped Max's leash a little tighter. Max, as always, was by her side, his body close to hers. She could feel the warmth of his fur against her legs. His calm presence always brought her comfort, but today, it didn't seem to ease her nervousness. She wasn't sure why, but it just felt like something wasn't right. Max's ears twitched as he sensed the tension in the air. Lisa didn't need to tell him anything. Max was always aware of his surroundings, always alert. He knew when something was off, and he would be ready if anything happened. "Are you lost, lady?" the biker repeated, his voice full of mockery. "Maybe you should have your dog lead you somewhere safer. You don't look like you belong here." His words hit harder than they should have. Lisa had heard things like that before, but it was always different when it came from someone who seemed so certain. So sure of himself. And it made Lisa feel small. It made her feel like she was being shoved into a box that she didn't belong in. Max growled softly beside her. Lisa could feel him tense up, his muscles stiffening. He was getting ready. Ready for anything. Lisa took a slow, steady breath. She couldn't show the bikers how much their words had affected her. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. The other bikers were starting to notice, and one of them revved his bike even louder, making the ground shake beneath Lisa's feet. They were doing it on purpose. They wanted her to feel small. They wanted her to feel scared. Lisa could hear them snickering behind her. Could hear their whispering and giggling as they waited for her to do something, anything. They wanted a reaction. They wanted to see her stumble. They wanted to make her feel like she was weak. But Lisa wasn't weak. And Max wasn't just any guide dog. Max had been trained to help Lisa. But he had been trained to do so much more. He had been trained for dangerous situations. He had been trained to protect. And he had been through things that would shock anyone who learned about them. But not everyone knew that. Not everyone understood that. Lisa's calm demeanor never wavered. She knew how to stay in control. But the bikers didn't know that. They didn't know Max's true purpose, his true strength. They didn't know what he could do. Lisa took another step forward. Max walked with her, each of his steps measured, confident. Lisa's hand stayed steady on the leash, guiding Max as she always did. But today, there was something different. Something was about to happen. Something the bikers wouldn't expect. Something they'd never see coming. The group of bikers grew louder. One of them, the leader of the group, stepped closer, blocking her path. He crossed his arms over his chest and looked at Lisa with a cocky grin. "What's wrong, lady? You don't know where you're going," he sneered. "Maybe we should help you out. Or maybe not. Looks like your dog's doing all the work for you." The words cut into Lisa like a knife. She could feel the sting, but she didn't let it show. She took another deep breath and gave Max a small, almost invisible nod. Max's ears perked up at the signal. He was ready. Lisa's heart was steady, and her mind was focused. She had been through worse than this. But these bikers, they didn't know her. They didn't know Max. And they certainly didn't know what was coming. What they didn't know, was that Max wasn't just any guide dog. Not by a long shot. Days passed, and as much as Lisa tried to ignore them, she knew the bikers were still there. Every day, she walked the same path through the city with Max, her guide dog. And every day, the bikers were there too. They never seemed to leave. They stood near the motorcycle shop, laughing, talking, and revving their engines. Their loud voices always filled the air, and their bikes seemed to roar with power. Lisa had learned to ignore them. They were nothing new. In the beginning, she'd gotten angry. She'd wanted to yell at them to leave her alone. But after a while, she realized that wouldn't do any good. They didn't care what she thought. They just wanted to make fun of her. The first few times they had spoken to her, she tried to respond. But their words only made her feel worse. They told her she was weak. They told her that she couldn't do things for herself. And every time she heard their cruel words, it made her heart ache a little more. But Lisa never showed it. She'd learned to keep her emotions hidden, especially in front of others. She couldn't let them see how much their words hurt. She couldn't let them see that they were winning. And Max? Max was always by her side. The golden retriever had been with Lisa for a long time, and together, they had faced many challenges. But Max had something the bikers didn't know. Max wasn't just any dog. He wasn't just there to help Lisa get around. He had a past. A past that involved much more than guiding a blind woman through city streets. Max's past wasn't something Lisa often talked about. It was a part of his life that she knew little about. But she didn't need to know all the details. All that mattered was that Max was loyal, brave, and always there for her. That was enough for Lisa. Still, the bikers' teasing didn't stop. And every time Lisa walked past them, their eyes followed her. They looked at her like she was something to be laughed at. They didn't know who Lisa really was. They didn't know the strength she carried inside. But more importantly, they didn't know Max. Every time they made fun of her, Lisa's fingers would tighten around Max's leash. She would squeeze his leash just a little harder, a small reminder to herself that she wasn't alone. That Max was there. And no matter what anyone said, Lisa knew that she and Max could handle anything together. One afternoon, Lisa and Max walked past the group of bikers again. It had become a regular part of her day. Lisa had gotten used to their comments. But this time, something felt different. The bikers were louder than usual, and their teasing seemed sharper, like they were waiting for something. Lisa tried not to let them get to her. She kept walking, her pace steady, her head held high. She didn't look at them. She didn't need to. She knew where she was going, and Max did too. They had walked this path countless times, and it was familiar. Lisa knew every step, every street, and every corner. But as she and Max walked by, one of the bikers stepped closer. This time, he was right in front of her. He didn't yell from a distance like the others. No, this one got close, so close that Lisa could feel his breath on her face. "What's a blind woman like you doing out here with your dog?" the biker sneered, his voice dripping with mockery. "Don't you need some help? Or maybe your dog's the one in charge, huh? You can't even see where you're going, can you?" The words hit Lisa hard. But she didn't show it. She didn't react. She couldn't. She just stood there, waiting for the moment to pass. She'd heard these words before. She knew how to ignore them. But there was something different about the way this biker spoke to her. It wasn't just teasing. It wasn't just a comment. It felt like a challenge. And that's when she noticed it. Max. Lisa had always been aware of Max's movements. She could feel the shift in his energy, even when nothing was happening. But this time, she felt something else. Something in the air seemed to change. Max, who had always been calm and composed, stood taller. His muscles tensed. His ears perked up, and he seemed to be listening more closely, his eyes scanning the area around them. Lisa could feel the tension in Max's body. He wasn't scared. No, Max wasn't scared. But he was alert. He was paying attention to the biker in a way he hadn't done before. Lisa knew that Max was trained to be aware of threats. She knew that if something went wrong, Max would act. But what Lisa didn't know was how far Max's training went, or what he was capable of. The biker stepped even closer, his smirk growing wider. He probably thought Lisa was too scared to say anything. He probably thought that Max was just a regular guide dog, a dog trained to help someone cross the street. But Max was more than that. Lisa knew it, and Max knew it too. "Hey," the biker said, his voice growing more challenging. "What's wrong? Cat got your tongue?" He stepped forward again, this time pushing against Lisa's shoulder. Max didn't hesitate. In a flash, Max growled low and deep. It was a sound that made the air feel heavy, like a storm was coming. The biker froze, his face turning pale as he realized something was different. Max's stance had shifted, and his gaze was locked onto the biker like a hawk watching its prey. Lisa felt the tension in the air. She could feel the strength in Max's muscles. She had never seen him react this way before. But she also knew one thing: Max wasn't going to let anything happen to her. Max wasn't just any guide dog. He wasn't just a companion who helped Lisa cross streets or navigate the world. He was something more. He had been trained for much more than helping a blind woman walk through the city. Max had been trained for situations like this. And Lisa had no idea just how much his past was about to come into play. The biker, now realizing that something wasn't right, took a step back. His confident grin faltered. He looked down at Max, then back at Lisa. But Lisa didn't say a word. She didn't need to. "Maybe you should leave now," Lisa said quietly, her voice calm but firm. The biker, not sure what to make of the situation, hesitated. For a moment, the only sound was the low rumble of the other bikers' motorcycles. But then, the biker slowly backed away, his hands raised in mock surrender. Lisa didn't move. She didn't say anything else. She just kept walking, Max by her side, guiding her through the streets like he always did. But something had shifted. Max had shown a side of himself that Lisa hadn't fully understood before. He wasn't just her guide dog. He was her protector. And for the first time, Lisa realized that Max had been trained for far more than guiding her through the city. As the biker finally turned and walked away, Lisa couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Max wasn't just a dog. He was a warrior. A warrior who had seen things, who had been through things, that Lisa could only begin to imagine. And today, Max had shown her just how far he was willing to go to keep her safe. But Lisa also knew that this wasn't over. The bikers would be back. They wouldn't stop. But Max was ready. And Lisa? Lisa was ready too. Lisa had walked this street 100 times before. Every time, it was the same. Max, her loyal guide dog, beside her. The bustling city streets, the honking cars, the chatter of people, the noise that never stopped. And of course, there were the bikers. Always there, always sneering. Always making her feel like an outsider. But Lisa had learned to ignore them. She had learned to keep her head high and focus on the path in front of her. But today was different. Today, something was about to change. The sun was high in the sky, casting its warm rays over the crowded street. People moved quickly, rushing to get to their destinations. Lisa stood at the corner, waiting for the light to change. Max was beside her, as always, his golden fur shining in the sunlight. But even though the city was as busy as ever, Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She had passed the bikers again, and as usual, they made their remarks. But this time, they didn't just stay where they were. They got closer, stepping into her path, blocking her way. Lisa could hear the sound of their engines revving behind her, and she could feel their eyes on her. She didn't have to see them to know that they were watching her every move, waiting for her to react. One of them, a tall man with a black leather jacket, stepped forward. His face twisted into a sneer, and Lisa could feel his presence closing in on her. He wasn't laughing this time. No, this time, he was serious. He took a step closer, his boots clicking on the pavement. His hand shot out, grabbing for her arm. In that moment, everything seemed to slow down. Lisa's heart skipped a beat. She had always known that something like this might happen. She had always known that the bikers might get too bold one day. But she had never expected it to happen like this. That's when Max acted. In a flash, Max was no longer standing calmly by Lisa's side. No, in an instant, he sprang into action. His muscles, honed from years of training, propelled him forward with a speed that shocked everyone. The biker had barely touched Lisa's arm when Max lunged, his body a blur of golden fur. Max let out a sharp, deep bark. It wasn't a playful bark. It wasn't the kind of bark that meant "come play with me" or "I want attention." No, this was a bark that sent a chill down the biker's spine. It was a bark that said, "Don't mess with us." Max's teeth flashed in the sunlight, and his body was tense, ready to protect. The biker froze. His hand, which had been reaching for Lisa, stopped in mid-air. His face paled as he realized what was happening. The other bikers who had been standing nearby suddenly grew quiet, their laughter disappearing as they took a step back. They had all underestimated Max. They had all thought of him as just a dog. A blind woman's dog. But now they were learning the hard way that Max was so much more. Lisa stood still, her heart racing in her chest, but her voice calm. This was the moment she had been waiting for. This was the moment she had kept hidden from everyone for so long. And now, it was time to finally speak up. She turned to face the bikers, who were all staring at Max in stunned silence. She could feel their eyes on her, but she didn't flinch. She didn't let fear show. Max was there, and she knew that he would protect her no matter what. "You didn't know, did you?" Lisa's voice cut through the silence, clear and strong. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. A statement that held so much more than just words. The bikers exchanged confused looks. They didn't understand. How could they? They had always seen Lisa and Max as nothing more than an easy target. But now, everything was changing. They had no idea what they were up against. Lisa smiled, but it wasn't a smile of kindness. It was a smile that carried years of untold stories. A smile that said, "You thought you knew me, but you had no idea." She took a deep breath, feeling a sense of power rise within her. Max isn't just a guide dog, she said, each word deliberate, every syllable sharp and clear. He's a retired Navy SEAL K9. And I'm sure he could teach you a thing or two about respect. There was a long, stunned silence. The bikers stood frozen, unable to process what they had just heard. Max, the dog they had made fun of, wasn't just a dog. He wasn't just some cute, fluffy companion for a blind woman. No, Max had lived a life that none of them could even imagine. A life full of danger. A life filled with years of training, sacrifice, and courage. Max had been a soldier. A hero. Lisa could see the shock on the bikers' faces. They were starting to understand. They were starting to realize the truth. Max wasn't just any dog. He wasn't just a pet. He had been trained for war. He had been trained to protect, to fight, and to serve. And now, he was here, standing beside Lisa, ready to defend her. The biker who had reached for Lisa's arm took a step back. His eyes were wide with fear. He had no idea that the dog he had mocked, the dog he had thought was just a silly guide dog, had once fought alongside soldiers in dangerous places. He had no idea that Max had seen things that most people couldn't even imagine. Max's growl rumbled in his throat, deep and low, a warning to the bikers. The sound of it sent a shiver down Lisa's spine. It was a sound that said, "Don't try it. Not today. Not with me here." The bikers were starting to realize just how wrong they had been. They were starting to understand that they had picked the wrong person to mess with. Max wasn't just a dog. He was a warrior. A protector. A retired Navy SEAL K9 who had seen the worst of the world and had come out the other side stronger for it. And now, it was his turn to protect the one person who had always been there for him. Lisa. The other bikers, seeing the way their friend had backed off, began to slowly move away. The tension in the air was thick, and Lisa could feel it. But she stood her ground. She didn't move an inch. She didn't flinch. She didn't need to. Max was right there, and that was all she needed. Lisa turned to Max, her heart swelling with pride. She had always known that Max was special. She had always known that there was more to him than met the eye. But now, everyone else knew it too. The bikers, now realizing that they had no business messing with Lisa or Max, backed off completely. They slowly turned and got on their bikes, revving the engines one last time before speeding off. The loud sound of their motorcycles faded into the distance, and the street was quiet again. But Lisa wasn't just standing there, watching them leave. No, she was thinking. She was thinking about everything that had happened. She was thinking about how far Max had come. How far they had both come. Lisa had spent so much of her life being underestimated. She had spent so much time hiding the truth about herself and about Max. But now, that truth had been revealed. Max wasn't just her guide dog. He was her protector. And together, they were a force to be reckoned with. As the bikers disappeared down the street, Lisa smiled to herself. She didn't need to say anything else. The message had been clear. Max had proven it. He had shown them that they had no idea who they were messing with. And in that moment, Lisa knew that she and Max could handle anything that came their way. And the best part? They didn't have to hide who they were anymore. The bikers stood still for a moment, their faces still filled with shock. They had no words. The tough exterior they had worn was gone, replaced by a quiet uncertainty. They had come here thinking they could push around an easy target. But they had underestimated the woman with the dog, the one they had made fun of. And they had underestimated Max. Slowly, one of the bikers stepped back. Then another. And another. The sounds of the motorcycles that had once been so loud, so dominant, were now strangely silent. It was as if the world itself had hit pause. Even the air felt still, like everyone was waiting for something. One of the bikers mumbled something under his breath. It wasn't loud enough for Lisa to hear, but she didn't need to hear it. The change in their posture said enough. They had no choice but to retreat. Lisa didn't move. She didn't say a word. She kept her gaze focused ahead, the same as always. Her every step was steady and sure, like she was walking through her own world, unshaken. Max, still by her side, had calmed down, but his eyes remained sharp, watchful. He wasn't going to let anyone harm her, not now and not ever. The way he stood told everyone watching that he was a protector, and no one would mess with Lisa again. The bikers, defeated and humbled, slowly turned away. One by one, they mounted their bikes, their movements awkward, as if they weren't sure whether to act casual or show some respect. But whatever confidence they once had was gone. They started their engines, and the sound, which had once been loud and intimidating, now seemed much quieter, less powerful. The heavy roar of the engines faded as they sped off into the distance, leaving nothing behind but the echo of their retreat. Lisa kept walking, her pace steady, Max's leash held loosely in her hand. They didn't need to say anything. They didn't need to prove anything. The moment had spoken for itself. The people around them, who had been watching from the sidewalks, who had witnessed everything unfold, stood in silence. The chatter that had filled the streets just moments before had faded away. The silence felt different now. It wasn't the usual noise of people ignoring the world around them. No, this was a silence born of respect. For the first time, Lisa could feel it. She could feel the shift. Some people glanced at her as she passed, their eyes wide with new understanding. The sneers, the judgment, the mocking glances that had followed her everywhere, those things were gone now. In their place was something stronger. Something that felt like respect. And Max? Max was just walking beside her, his body tall and proud, as if he knew he had earned the respect of not just Lisa but of everyone watching. He had proven himself today. He wasn't just a dog. He was a hero, a warrior. And even though he had never asked for recognition, it was clear that people now saw him for who he truly was. Lisa's footsteps echoed lightly as she made her way down the street. She wasn't in a rush. She didn't need to hurry. She had nothing to prove to anyone anymore. The world had just learned something important. She had learned it a long time ago, but today, everyone else had seen it too. She didn't stop to look around. She didn't need to. She had nothing to hide, nothing to fear. She and Max had stood up for themselves, and that was enough. The rest of the world would catch up, but it didn't matter. They had each other, and that was all that mattered. As they walked through the street, something incredible began to happen. The same people who had once whispered behind her back, who had once laughed when she passed, now watched with a different look in their eyes. The faces that had once been turned away or filled with judgment now watched her with quiet admiration. Some even smiled, just a little. Lisa noticed, but she didn't acknowledge it. She didn't need to. She had done the hard part already. The bikers? They wouldn't be coming back. Not anytime soon. Max had made sure of that. They had learned their lesson the hard way. And Lisa? She didn't have to say a thing. Her calm, her quiet strength, had been enough. Max had done his part too. No one would ever doubt him again. The bikers who had once seen him as nothing more than a guide dog, a simple companion, now understood. They saw him for who he really was. A hero. A retired Navy SEAL K-9. And they would never forget the way he stood between them and Lisa, his growl sending them running. It was a small moment, just a brief encounter on a busy street, but it meant everything. For Lisa, for Max, for the people who witnessed it, and for everyone who would never again underestimate them. The day had started out just like any other. But it had ended differently. It had ended with justice served, with respect earned, and with the truth about Lisa and Max finally revealed. It had ended with a powerful message: never underestimate someone. You never know who they really are, or who they have by their side. Lisa kept walking. Max kept walking. Together, they were unstoppable. And as they walked away, the city seemed just a little bit quieter, just a little bit kinder. The world had learned something that day, something that couldn't be unlearned. And Lisa knew, without a doubt, that this was just the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where she and Max would no longer be overlooked. No longer underestimated. No longer dismissed. Because when you walk through the world with strength, courage, and a loyal partner like Max, nothing can stop you. Not now. Not ever. Sometimes, in life, we meet people or animals that seem ordinary on the outside. We think we know everything about them just by how they look or act. We think we can easily guess what they're capable of, just because of what we see. But the truth is, there's so much more beneath the surface. There are stories we can't see, strengths we don't understand, and powers hidden deep inside those who seem the most vulnerable. Lisa and Max taught everyone who crossed their path that day just how powerful it is to never judge a book by its cover. They showed that the quietest, most unassuming people, those who seem the most vulnerable, can often be the strongest, the most courageous, and the ones who have the most fight in them when it really matters. Lisa, with her calm and graceful steps, never asked for anyone's sympathy. She didn't need it. People assumed that because she couldn't see, she couldn't do things like everyone else. They saw her with a guide dog and thought she was helpless. But what they didn't know was that Lisa wasn't defined by her blindness. She was defined by her resilience, her strength, and the experiences she had lived through. She had a heart full of determination, and she had learned to navigate the world in her own way, with her loyal companion by her side. Max, too, was a perfect example of this lesson. He wasn't just a guide dog. He was so much more. Beneath his calm, steady presence was a history that few could imagine, a history of heroism, bravery, and service to his country. He had been trained to protect, to serve, and to fight. And just because he wore the collar of a guide dog now, it didn't mean he was any less of a warrior. Max had proven that day that appearances can be deceiving, and there's so much more beneath the surface of what we can see. That's what the bikers had learned that day. They had judged Max and Lisa without knowing anything about them. They had thought they could intimidate Lisa because she was blind, and they had thought they could underestimate Max because he was just a dog. But when they saw the truth, when they saw Max spring into action and heard Lisa speak up with quiet strength, they understood. They understood that they had misjudged everything. They had seen a blind woman with a dog, but they had never seen the power that lay hidden in both of them. In life, there will always be people who try to put others down, who think they know everything just by looking at someone. They may think they understand the struggles, the strengths, or the potential of someone else, but the truth is, they don't. No one ever truly knows what's going on inside someone's heart or mind, or the power they might have within them to face challenges head-on. The lesson from Lisa and Max is one that everyone needs to remember. It's so easy to make assumptions based on how someone looks, how they speak, or what we think we know about them. But we can't let our first impression be the final judgment. There's always more beneath the surface, always more to a person than what we see at first glance. And it's not just about seeing the hidden strengths in others. It's also about believing in our own strength, even when the world doesn't see it. Lisa never needed anyone's approval. She didn't need to prove anything to anyone. She just kept walking forward, knowing that the truth was always with her. Max, too, wasn't looking for praise. He wasn't looking for anyone to recognize his past as a Navy SEAL K-9. He was simply doing his job, protecting Lisa, being the loyal companion she needed. But that day, when the bikers tried to mess with them, the world saw just how strong they both were. We all have moments when people doubt us, when they look at us and assume they know who we are, what we can do, or what we can't do. Maybe it's because we're different. Maybe it's because we look or act differently than what's considered normal. Maybe it's because we don't fit into the box that society expects us to fit into. But the truth is, there's no one right way to be strong, to be capable, or to have power. Strength comes in all shapes, sizes, and forms. Lisa's strength wasn't in her sight. It wasn't in how fast she could walk or how much she could see. Her strength was in her heart, in her courage, and in her ability to keep moving forward no matter what. Max's strength wasn't in being a guide dog. His strength was in his heart too, in his loyalty, his training, and his protective nature. Together, they were unstoppable. They proved that no matter what people see on the outside, there's always more to someone's story. There's always more to someone's power. Sometimes, the world tries to make us feel small. It tries to tell us that we don't have enough or that we aren't capable of handling certain things. But we should never forget that the most important strength comes from within. When we trust ourselves, when we believe in who we are and what we can do, we can rise above anything. The bikers thought they knew the story. They thought they understood what Lisa and Max were capable of. But the truth was, they couldn't have been more wrong. And when they realized the truth, they didn't just learn about Max's past, they learned that strength isn't always obvious. It isn't always loud. Sometimes, strength is quiet. Sometimes, it's calm. But it's always there. And when it matters most, it rises up. So, the next time you meet someone who seems different, who seems like they need help, or who you think you can easily judge, remember Lisa and Max. Remember that there's more to them than meets the eye. Remember that the quietest people, the ones who seem the most vulnerable, might just be the ones with the most power inside of them. And remember Max, the retired Navy SEAL K9, who taught everyone that no one should ever be underestimated, not the dog, and not the person holding the leash. From that day forward, no one ever underestimated Lisa or Max again. They had proven something bigger than just strength. They had proven that sometimes the most unexpected people and the most unexpected animals are the ones who hold the most power. So, remember this always: never judge a book by its cover. And never underestimate someone, because you never know who they really are, or what they're capable of. Like Lisa and Max, you might just surprise the world.